All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's session, webinar. And we can, I think, all agree that today is a good day. I'd love to see some emojis in the chat. Raise your hand, put a smiley face, give us a thumbs up, just to signal that today is a good day. This new normal of us doing these things virtually, I'm not a big fan of it, but we have to adapt. And I'm really hoping we're all doing what's necessary so we can come back out and do this type of thing face to face. So I am Christopher Brown, and it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to our first in a 4-part series of webinars. This is on behalf of the Development Bank of Jamaica through our Big E program. And we're really going to be talking about topics surrounding innovation and entrepreneurship. So I hope you enjoy this session as well as the others that are to come. The Big E program and the DBJ, we really believe big in sharing knowledge and experiences. That's how entrepreneurs like yourself would be able to learn. You don't have to go through it yourself. You should be able to take learnings from people and their experiences. So we are trying to give you as much of that knowledge early out, so you have a head start on your journey. So today we are welcoming our partners, the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, otherwise known as JIPO, and in particular, Lily Claire Bellamy, the Executive Director for JIPO, and Chantal English, the Manager for Copyrights and Related Rights. And these two are strong partners with us. When we just started discussing what kind of topics we would look at, intellectual property was one that came up, and as soon as we reached out to JIPO, JIPO was willing to jump on board immediately. So ladies, we appreciate the collaboration and the work that you do in really getting people to understand more about intellectual property. So without a doubt, I think we can all accept that Jamaicans are creative by nature. So we really think it's important for us to ensure that they understand intellectual property. That you all understand what intellectual property is and how it can be used, whether it is to raise financing or to make your companies or your businesses more competitive globally. So that's the purpose of why we are here, to ensure that you guys understand that this is a useful tool, what it is and how it can be used in the future. So today's program is really in 2 parts. The first part, we'll have a presentation from JIPO introducing IP and trademarks, and let you guys know what this IP thing, intellectual property thing, is that we talk about. And then the second part would be a conversation with 2 Jamaican inventors. They have gone through this process of having an idea, trying to build it. Sure, that didn't work out sometimes. They tried again, and they eventually got to the point of deciding to protect the intellectual property, which is the idea or what was created. And we're going to be hearing what that journey is like and really how you can learn from it. So let me first introduce our partners. Miss Lily Claire Bellamy is the Executive Director of JIPO. She's a Commonwealth Fellow, graduate of the University of the West Indies, Mona and Cave Hill campuses, and she has a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Law degree. She holds a Master's from Concordia University, Montreal, and was the first female international student to be elected President of the Graduate Students Association. Lily has a lot of nice things written down here, right? Which I won't spend much time on, but just to indicate that she represents the government on many different boards, directorships, and we would like to welcome Lily Claire. And just for the audience, she will do her presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll take it after the presentation is finished. So let's welcome Lily.
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. I'm running the day. Okay, first I'd like to acknowledge Christopher Brown from the Development Bank of Jamaica, Ms. Francis and Ms. Nelson, with whom we have been working. I'd also like to recognize Chantal English, who, when we started the process, was the copyright and related rights manager. This is our first outing as our Deputy Director Legal Counsel. So if I could have some emojis congratulating Chantal, that would be excellent. I'm also quite happy to be in the presence of two of our innovators, Alison and Jovan, and you'll hear from them later. So it is my job to speak to you today about intellectual property. And I think I have too many slides, so I'm going to go quickly because you'll be able to access this after. So the first thing is, what is intellectual property? So intellectual property basically refers to the legal rights which result from intellectual activity in the industrial, scientific, literary, and artistic fields. That's a whole mouthful to just basically say intellectual property is around you from you wake up in the morning till you go back to sleep at night. Every single thing you do touches and concerns intellectual property, from the bed you're sleeping on to your smartphone that you had in the bed with you, which you shouldn't have had. Everything. It's because of intellectual property we're being able to do this right now. So intellectual property includes rights relating to literary, artistic, and scientific works, performances of performing artists, broadcasts, which we're doing now, inventions in all fields of human endeavor, scientific discoveries, industrial designs, trademarks, geographical indications, and protection against unfair competition. And you might wonder, what does unfair competition have to do with intellectual property? Well, when I get into trademark, I will give you some ideas of why unfair competition is so important. So we're talking about intellectual property, but what is intellectual property? Intellectual property is basically two categories. So you have industrial property and you have copyright and related rights. That's three things, but it's really two things. So copyright and related rights is one part, and then industrial property is the other part. You put them together, voila, you have intellectual property. Okay, so while it's changing, so copyright covers literary, artistic, and scientific work. And one question that we always get is, a computer program is an example of a copyright, not an invention. So you protect computer programs through copyright. So that leads me into what may be protected. So any original, and that is critical, the work must be an original work. Original literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work, a sound recording, and you know Jamaica is famous for our music, a typographical arrangement of a published edition. All of those can be protected, and that comes directly from our Copyright Act. A literary, dramatic, or musical work is not eligible for copyright protection unless it is recorded in writing or otherwise. So how we usually speak about that is, copyright comes into existence if you put it in a tangible format. So for example, my presentation is in a tangible format. Therefore, I can have copyright in it. The copyright in this work belongs to the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. And I think it's a convenient time for me to mention that I'm actually utilizing stuff that was prepared under the Inter-American Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the government of Jamaica. There's a project that's underway now looking at intellectual property valuation and collateralization. And part of that project is we have prepared a toolkit that is available for persons who have business to use to learn about intellectual property at their own pace, and also to see how they can utilize the information in this to protect their assets. The owner of copyright in a work receives a number of exclusive rights. In fact, every form of intellectual property right gives you the exclusive right. And what that exclusive right means is that you have the authority to do anything with your work because it belongs to you. So just like how when you wake up in the morning, hopefully you put on clothes before you go out the door. So you have the right to decide if you're going to put on your t-shirt with the tag in the back or the tag in the front. Nobody can tell you. People might wonder, why they put on a t-shirt with a tag in the back? But you decided you were going to make a statement. You know, in the olden days, before most of you who are probably watching this were around, people always wore their hats with the thing at the front. Now we put it on with the visor, which is supposed to be shielding your eyes from the sun. It's at the back, so it's protecting your neck. So in the same way, you have the exclusive right to decide how you dress. Intellectual property gives you the exclusive right to do what you want to do with your works. So in the area of copyright, you have the exclusive right to copy your work, to give copies of your work to the public, to perform the work in public, to play it or to show the work in public, and you also have the right to broadcast. So this is why we have an enforcement arm of the Jamaica Constabulary Force that deals with the enforcement of intellectual property rights. Because just like how they will protect your real property, which is, for example, your house or your car, we have an arm of our constabulary force that is focused on protecting our intellectual property rights. And because you have the exclusive right to your work, you need to know if someone should infringe your work, what is your course of action. The other thing with copyright is it gives you the right to make an adaptation of your work. So that's just a fancy way of saying you've written a book, and your book is a fantastic book. And so a movie producer reads your book and decides, I want to convert this book into a film. Even though it might be a compliment because they want to use your work to create a film, they can't do it unless they shouldn't do it. They can do it, but if they do it, they've infringed your copyright. So the way to go about using your work to make that film is to get your permission, okay? So any adaptation. So you might write a poem, and somebody hears your poem and says, wow, that poem would make a wonderful song. They can't convert that poem into they should not convert that poem into a song unless they get your permission. So there are two critical rights that are associated with copyright. We have the moral rights and we have the economic rights. The moral right is a right to be identified as the author. And when we speak about author, when we talk about copyright, we're not speaking only about persons who write. The author is also, for example, somebody who does an architectural drawing, that's the author of the work. Someone who takes a photograph, that's the author of the work. So when we use author for copyright, it is a wide meaning of the word author. So you have the right, anything that you use, you have the right for people to know that you created that work. You also have the right to object to anybody treating your work in a way that may be considered derogatory. So they may be thinking, wow, you know, I think I can make this poem rhyme better. And they change it. They're not allowed to do that because it is your right. So it's not about making it sound better. It's about leaving it because it is yours. The economic rights, there are several economic rights. So the right of translation, the right of reproduction, the right of broadcast and communication to the public, the right of public communication. So for example, by a loudspeaker or something similar. All of those pertain to the public use of your work, and all of those are rights that you have the exclusive right to. And I believe this presentation will be made available, so I'm not going to go into all of the details of the rights. But just to let you know that intellectual property gives you certain rights, okay? We spoke about the right of adaptation and the right of public recitation and communication. All of those are works that are associated specifically with the area of copyright. Okay. Give me a time to catch my breath and a time for you to get a break from me speaking. Okay, this is critical. Now we get phone calls to the office all the time. I mean, constantly. Somebody will say, you know, I have a brilliant idea, okay? And they take that brilliant idea and they share it with someone. Now, unfortunately, your idea cannot be protected in and itself. You have to, remember when I said at the beginning of the presentation that my presentation is in a tangible format, so my copyright has come into existence. In the absence of that, in me sharing the idea with you without it being in a tangible format, then you can take it and you can use it, and I will be there saying, you know, I was the one who came up with that idea. But you gave a tangible result to my idea, so it became your copyright, unfortunately. So what I always say, which doesn't sound very nice, don't share it with anybody. Not your friends, not your family, nobody. Put it in a tangible format, because copyright protects expressions of ideas which fall into a protectable category. It can only be protected if you have it in a tangible format. So once you have it in a tangible format, then you can shout from the rooftop, you can share it with everybody, because that's fine. And the thing about it is, copyright will subsist in a work irrespective of the quality of the work. So I want to enter a competition, and my skill set is not in poetry, but I decide I'm going to write a poem. And I think this poem is the best poem, and that I should win a prize for my literary genius. And everybody who reads the poem said, what was she thinking? That poem makes absolutely no sense, okay? But I thought it was wonderful, and I have copyright in it, even though it is not an excellent poem. Somebody who is can write wonderful poems, but they're unable to do a painting, and they try, and they think, wow, I am the next Picasso. And everybody looks at it, and they're like, wow, nice try, but you know, that's reminiscent of when you're in basic school and you're just learning how to paint. So, but you still have copyright in it, because it doesn't matter how it looks. You understand? That's not what makes it copyrightable. There's one other important thing to note. Even though we tell you that it has to be in a tangible format, there is no formal system necessary to register your copyright. Copyright is automatic. Once it's created, it is there, and you don't have to do anything else to protect it. But evidence is what our jurisprudence is based on. So if you've created your work and you don't have it anywhere, and okay, so you created it and you have it at home in a book, but you shared it with a number of people. And this is a story that actually happened, so I'll share it with you without calling names. There's a lady who is a prolific writer, and she writes really very well. And unfortunately, one of her students took her work, and not only did he use her poems, he recorded them, and he sings them, and he's well known. But it's not his work, it is her work. Unfortunately, she is strapped to find the evidence to show that she created the work. So historically, what we always told people to do was to utilize the poor man's copyright. So what the poor man's copyright is, you've written a wonderful song. So we encourage you to make a copy of that song, and then once you finish writing it, you write out your full name. So you write your full name. So if it was me, I'd write Lily Claire Bellamy. I created this wonderful song today. What is today? July the 6th, right? So I write July 6th, but I have to write the year also, because it could be July 6th any year. So I write July 6th, 2022. Then I write the word copyright. So that's a long word, so I write COPYRIGHT. It's one word, and I write it at the bottom. Or I could take the shortcut, which is to write the letter C and just put a circle around it. So what I've done by that action is give notice to the entire world that I created that work on the 6th day of July, 2022. So from that action, my copyright starts to run. Once I've done that, now I make a copy of that. So I photocopy it, put it in an envelope, go to the post office, and I send it to myself by registered mail. I do not email it. I do not use any other form of social media. I use the old-fashioned snail mail, because if anybody has ever gotten a registered letter, you will see a registered letter. That envelope is extremely fancy. it has markings on it, and it has writing on it. Because basically, that is the evidence that you're going to use. Should someone infringe your work, you will go to the court, or you'll go to an attorney at law who deals in intellectual property rights. That's important and critical. If you're charged for a criminal offense, I would encourage you to go to an attorney who specializes in that area. So if you have an intellectual property issue, I would encourage you to go to an intellectual property attorney, and you can get the names of the attorneys who practice in the area of intellectual property from the General Legal Counsel or from the Bar Association of Jamaica. So once you've written your name and you've made a copy, you send it back to yourself by registered mail, and when you get it, you do not open the envelope. You're not excited to say, I've gotten mail. You leave it. You keep it sealed. But if someone should infringe your work, then you take that envelope to the attorney and you go through the process. If you create a lot of work, it is important for you to have a system in place where you'll know which work is in which envelope, okay? So you might have a book, or you might save it on your computer so that you write envelope number 1 has the blue sky, envelope number 2 has the tree with flowers, so you know which work is in which envelope. The other thing that we have done is, by an amendment to the Copyright Act of Jamaica, we introduced the voluntary registration of copyright at JIPO. So what that does is it allows persons to utilize a registration system where they declare that they are the creator of the work, okay? So you go before a justice of the peace, you voluntarily declare that you created the work on a specific day, and we will provide you with a certificate. Now, that certificate is not to say your work is copyrighted. What that certificate does is to help you, just like how the poor man's copyright and you get that envelope back, the certificate is notice to the world that you declare that you created that work, okay? So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll get to them at the end, all right? The other thing to do with copyright is every work that is created in Jamaica, a copy of that work should be deposited with the National Library of Jamaica. It is actually written in the law, and you shouldn't infringe the law, and it's worth your while to deposit your work at the National Library. And I would encourage everyone to read the Legal Deposit Act, because you would be very surprised at what is in that law, and it would be to your advantage and to your benefit. So I'd encourage persons to use the Legal Deposit Act and to deposit your work at the National Library. Okay, so with copyright, we also have related rights that deals with performing rights. And so this is basically when somebody performs in public, that is a part of copyright. I'm going to move now into industrial property, which is a very important and critical area, not to negative copyright, because everybody knows, well, we're in the time now of the festival song, and everybody can remember a favorite festival song that they had, and those festival songs would have been protected with copyright. So this is the area of industrial property. We're talking about inventions, we're talking about trademarks, industrial designs, geographical indications, to name a few, because there are other areas of industrial property that I haven't touched on, but you can reach out to us and we can share those with you. So what is a patent? A patent is basically a technical solution to a problem. And it has to be a new solution, okay? So you can't come to JIPO to say you want to protect an invention, which is something that is old. And later on today, you'll hear about inventions that were protected. A trademark is a sign that distinguishes the goods and services of one trader from those of another trader. And now I'm going to be selfish and show you this is our trademark. This is the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office trademark. I don't know if you can see, but we've protected our trademark. DBJ, that's an example. Biggie, all of these are examples of trademarks, okay? So what a trademark does is it distinguishes the goods or services that you offer from those of somebody else. An industrial design now, an industrial design is an aesthetic creation determining the appearance of an industrial product. So this could be protected. This lectern is another example of an industrial design. The chair that you're sitting on at home is probably another example of an industrial design. And for those of you who are old enough, when Jamaica qualified for the World Cup in France in 1998, the t-shirt that the Reggae Boys wore, that's a protected design. And most people, when they go to shop, they're like, okay, I don't want that design, and they decide. All of those are examples of things that can be protected. Geographical indications. As the name says, geographical indications are signs that are used on goods that have a specific geographical origin, and they possess qualities that are associated with that origin and with that place. And a geographical indication is quite a distinctive and an important area, and one that we're working on in Jamaica now. And there's a whole list of potential products that can be protected as geographical indications. And if you reach out to us, we will share that with you. Trade secrets. There's one product in Jamaica. Well, during the pandemic, there were very long lines to get one product that is protected by a trade secret in Jamaica. Exactly. KFC, as somebody said. But we also have our own trade secret product in Jamaica, which is celebrating over 100 years. And I wonder if anybody could put the name of that product in the chat. I'm not going to say what it is. At the end, I'll say it. So we have a trade secret in Jamaica that has been in existence for over 100 years. And I'll give you a hint. It is located in a parish that is in the middle. It's not a saint. It's not a parish that has saint in its name, okay? That's the hint I'm giving you. Okay, so basically, a trade secret is as the name suggests. You have to keep the information secret, because once you reveal the information, then it is no longer secret. And so with a trade secret, that protection will last for as long as the information is kept secret. So just like how nobody knows, well, a few people know the formula for the Kentucky Fried Chicken, this Jamaican trade secret was passed from one family to the other family who bought the company. No? Moving right along. Okay, so now, people are trying to guess what the trade secret is. It is in the parish that starts with the letter M. Yes. Yes, okay, it's Manchester, but I'm waiting for somebody to put the answer in the chat, so I have nothing. Is the answer in the chat? Tell me. Yes! And whoever gave the answer, Jaipa has a present for you, okay? So pick a pepper, that is correct. Pick a pepper is a trade secret. Okay, and the interesting thing about pick a pepper, the story behind pick a pepper was, the person who came up with it, he just did it in his kitchen. He started out, trying to make a sauce. And 100 years later, that sauce is world-renowned. It's exported globally, and people associate it with Jamaica. So pick a pepper is our Jamaican trade secret. All right, a patent now. A patent is an exclusive right. Remember I said at the beginning, all intellectual property rights grant the owner an exclusive right. So the owner or the creator has the exclusive right, because you can create something and you can sell your intellectual property right, or you may license your intellectual property right. You may come up with wonderful inventions and decide, I don't want to take the time to exploit my invention, but what I have created solves a problem that other people may want to benefit from, so I can license that technology. So in the same way, and we go back to copyright now, you will have a songwriter who is a prolific songwriter, and you don't know what the person looks like, because you only see the artist who is performing the work. You don't see the songwriter. But every single time that song is sung, that songwriter earns. And in the same way, when you have an invention, you can license that invention to somebody, and depending on the terms of the agreement, you will earn. So you can do like we did during COVID. You can be at home in your pajamas coming up with brilliant inventions, and you're earning, and you don't have to go out, okay? So this is the benefit of intellectual property. You can earn from your creations, but you need to ensure that you protect your intellectual property. So you get an exclusive right once you have an invention, if you make the application. The invention can be in the form of a product or a process, and it can offer a new technical solution to an existing problem, or it may be a new way of doing something, okay? So we will have an example today of a new way of doing something. Well, more than one example. But what I always try to share with persons so they understand what a patent is in a simple way is, if you ever put a tablet in your mouth or you get an injection, that formula started out its life usually as an invention, and it is protected. So if you're diabetic, the medication you're taking, if you have hypertension, if you have asthma, any of those diseases, all of those drugs start their life being protected by inventions, also known as patents, okay? Okay, this is important. A patent, like most intellectual property rights, are territorial. So if you get protection in Jamaica, the protection is limited to Jamaica. So we encourage you, whatever you have and wherever you hope to exploit it, and when we say exploit, wherever you hope for someone to use your invention, you should protect it in that jurisdiction. It used to be, until the 10th of March this year, you would have to go to every single jurisdiction where you wanted to protect it and make an application. Now, Jamaica has become a signatory to the Patent Cooperation Treaty. And under the Patent Cooperation Treaty, I hear applause. Under the Patent Cooperation Treaty, what you can now do is, going through the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is the United Nations body with responsibility for intellectual property, you can make an application. There's a process that you follow, and you can then designate the member states in which you want to have your invention protected. And this becomes important if you're looking to license your invention to other persons. So you need to protect it in the jurisdictions where you hope to license it. Okay? So I spoke about, this is the PCT, the Patent Cooperation Treaty. So this is really something that's important and significant that we have done here in Jamaica. And I think the government should be commended for that. So under our Patents and Designs Act, which was a new law, which was passed in 2020, which also incorporated the provisions of the Patent Cooperation Treaty, there are three main criteria that you have to put in place to obtain protection for your invention, okay? And one, it has to be novel, it has to be inventive, and it has to have industrial applicability. If it doesn't have those, then you don't meet the mark and you cannot get an invention. However, we have also, with the new Patent and Designs Act, put in a provision for a utility model, or what is referred to in some jurisdictions as a petty patent. So the criteria to achieve that is not as great. So perhaps you don't meet the criteria to have a patent, but you might meet the criteria to have a utility model. So this goes into all of the details about what is novelty. It must be new. The details of the patent must not have been disclosed. I'm going to repeat that. If you have a brilliant solution to a problem, please, I'm begging you, do not go on YouTube. Do not go on any form of social media and share it. Do not go into the regular media. Do not call the newspapers. Do not go on TV. Do not go to the radio station. Do not share it with anybody, okay? Because it has to be brand new for you to be able to get it. So once you've exposed it, as we'd say in Jamaica, your corner dark. So what I'm encouraging you to do is once you come up with your invention, run straight to the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office to find out how you can protect it. If you can't run to us, pick up the phone and call us. 876-946-1300. Call us, we'll answer you, and we'll give you the guidance. Or if you don't want to come to JIPO, find an intellectual property rights attorney who can give you the necessary guidance so that you obtain the necessary protection. Once you've obtained the protection, then you can start to share it with everybody. But don't expose it until you have started the process to protect it, okay? So there's novelty and there has to be an inventive step. So this inventive step speaks to something that is not obvious. So it can be something that is obvious to somebody. So if it's obvious, then you don't really meet the criteria, okay? Industrial applicability. So once you've come up with your solution, it must be a solution to a problem. So what is the problem that you're solving? It has to be a problem that needs to be solved. So you'll hear about people doing research to find cures to different diseases. Remember when the COVID pandemic started, there was a mad rush to find a solution. I won't ask how many people are vaccinated. You could put that in the chat, but I won't. I see people looking at me strange in here. No, it didn't. My clicker almost got wet, but I think it's okay. I hope. All right. So, and just to say, the fact about those vaccines also gives me an opportunity to share with you another part of intellectual property. It gives you exclusive rights, but nearly I think every intellectual property right has what you call exceptions and limitations. So there's a recognition that you have the exclusive right, but you shouldn't have the exclusive right to the extent where it causes public harm. So when you look at patents, there are exceptions and limitations that are allowed. So those, going the wrong way, those exceptions and limitations allow for a number of things to be done. You can't get something that is contrary to public order or morality. So please don't bring them to the office because you won't get the patent, okay? So, and you may not get it in Jamaica, but you may apply somewhere else and you get it because their public order and morality is different, because this is why intellectual property rights are jurisdictional. But what I'm saying is, in terms of well, you have the exclusive right, just like with copyright or with any other right, you have the right to make it, to use it, to sell it, to distribute it, to license it. All of this is yours, but you need to protect it so that you can exercise those rights. Because if you don't exercise those rights yourself, somebody will exercise them for you, unfortunately. Okay, I'm trying to get to we spoke about the exploitation. This is it, the limitations and exceptions. How much time? Okay, so the compulsory licensing. So with the compulsory license, what it is with the compulsory licensing, what it means is that if you have the solution to a problem, the government may decide that they are going to utilize your intellectual property right and pay you for it. But if there is, for example, a public health emergency, then measures will be put in place so that the public health emergency can be prevented and can be assisted, okay? So there are limitations and exceptions. Your patent lasts for 20 years. Your copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 95 years, okay? All right, industrial designs. Industrial designs speaks to the ornamental or aesthetic aspect of an article. It must be three-dimensional, such as the shape or surface of an article, or patterns, lines, or colors. All of those is what distinguishes your product and gives it the ability to be considered an industrial design. You protect an industrial design by making an application to the Intellectual Property Office. In this instance, if you're doing it in Jamaica, it would be to the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. You bring in copies of your design, not the actual design. We just need copies, and the Patent and Designs Act would give you the details of what you need to bring in. Industrial designs usually protect handicrafts, goods. I've seen somebody in here in an example of a protected Jamaican design, which is a Bridget sandal. That is one of our own creators in Jamaica. And those sandals are protected under the Design Act, okay? And the designs now, they last in the initial period for 5 years, but you have the ability to renew the protection of that design for 2 consecutive periods of 5 years. So in total, you can protect your design for 15 years, but it has to be done consecutively, okay? That's Section 94 of the Industrial Design, of the Patent and Designs Act. Just like how we had the Patent Cooperation Treaty to protect patents and inventions, we also signed on to an international registration system for designs, which is the Hague system. And that also took place on the 10th of March this year. And under that, just like with the patent system, you are able, if you are a national of Jamaica who is a contracting party to the Hague, and you live here, or let's say you're not a Jamaican, but you're domiciled and you have your habitual place of residence in Jamaica, then you can protect using the Hague system. Trademarks. We're coming to trademarks now. Okay, trademarks protect signs that distinguish the goods and services of one trader from those of another. So you use a trademark to distinguish certain goods and services as those produced by a certain person or enterprise. So we have 2 persons in here who have, in addition to inventions, they have trademarks. And so you'll see people walking around with branded trademarks. And if I say to you, which is a telecommunications company in Jamaica that uses blue or uses red, you will immediately know without me calling the name. So this is how a trademark helps you with your business, because people will associate that sign or that color with your company. So it makes sense for you to protect your trademark. So Section 2, it's a sign, and the sign can consist of numbers, words, or a figurative element. All of those are a picture or a symbol. Something you create can be utilized as your trademark. We also have with trademarks 2 areas referred to as collective marks and certification marks. The certification marks are probably the ones that most Jamaican business people are familiar with, because, for example, Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee is protected with a certification mark. So every person in Jamaica who sells Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee must satisfy the criteria that's included in that certification mark. So if you look, when you go in the supermarket, you can look at the packaging on any Blue Mountain Coffee. You will see the certification mark, but you'll also see the trademark. So the person will have the certification mark, which means they're allowed to produce Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee, but they will also have their trademark for people to say, okay, I want Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee, but I want this brand, all right? A certification mark really puts you in a box to ensure that you satisfy the criteria. Yes. I'm going to speed up now because I know I'm out of time. And I apologize for that. Okay, the last area that I'm going to look at is the area of a geographical indication. And with a geographical indication, as I mentioned earlier, a geographical indication speaks to an area. So, for example, in Jamaica, we have 3 geographical indications. One that's protected with a certification mark, which is Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee. The other 2 that are protected under the protection of geographical indications are Jamaica Rum and Jamaica Jerk. So both of those are protected as geographical indications. Perhaps one of the most famous geographical indications would be Champagne. So we have those. The other thing that we have, the other international treaty, which was in the news a lot, but which is specific to trademarks only, is the Madrid Protocol, which, just like the Patent Corporation Treaty and the Hague for Industrial Designs, allows you to protect your intellectual property in the jurisdictions that are party to those treaties. With a geographical indication, the right lasts for as long as the area exists, or if you do something contrary to the terms of that geographical indication, what will happen is that your registration will be cancelled. A trademark lasts for 10 years and it can be renewed for a period of 10 years. So I think that is it. If you have any questions, you can email them to us or you can get in touch with us at the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. I thank you for your attention, and I'm going to hand over back now to Christopher. Christopher, all yours. Don't leave. Okay.
These are 3 questions.
Okay. Okay, what if one has collaborated on a piece of work and the other party doesn't want to add your work because payment for consultation was made? The payment was not made for the idea, can copyright be had? Okay, that's a basic copyright question. And it is something that happens all the time. It is important for you when you are entering into a contract with somebody that you have it in writing. Because if it is not in writing, it becomes a case of my word and your word, and it becomes very fuzzy, which is why we now have contract law, because historically, the underpinnings of a contract were you shook somebody's hand, you had a discussion, and you said to them, for example, I agree that I am going to give you 50 copies of my work. And you are to sell those 50 copies of my work, and I expect to receive $1 for each copy of my work. So after you've sold them, I expect to receive $50, and you shake on it, okay? So you're now supposed to sell my work, and I'm supposed to receive $50. I discover that you sold my work, and you made $1 million. So I come to you now, and I say, I want $500,000. And you say, sorry, you said $50. Here is your $50. And I'm gone with what I earned. And you are upset. So now, the handshake we realized was not working. Because people, well, unfortunately, one person was a major entrepreneur, and they found a way to sell those books and get a lot more than you thought was the value of them. So now what we have is a contract. So you write the contract, and the contract would stipulate exactly what is to take place. So in this instance, it's going to become a question of you being able to prove that you had the copyright, because the idea in of itself is not copyrightable. So when you have a discussion with somebody and you're going back and forth and you're sharing ideas, at the end of the day, it is who converts all of those ideas into something tangible. Okay, a tangible format is in writing or in a recording. So if you can play it back, and now every cell phone can record. So you can record it on your cell phone, or you can use the old-fashioned way of writing it, pen on paper, or you can type it. But once it is in a tangible format, according to WIPO, Jamaica's patent filings have not been increasing. Why do you think this is happening? Well, Jamaica's patent filings are not increasing in Jamaica because a lot of our Jamaican persons are patenting outside. Because if you remember when I said, if you hope to exploit your invention, you need to protect it in that jurisdiction. So there have been instances in Jamaica where persons have come up with brilliant ideas and solutions to problems that we don't need it here in Jamaica, basically. So for them to exploit it and to earn from their invention, it is better for them to protect it overseas. Thank you so much.
I'm Google Jaipur, stuff must come up. All right, thank you very much, Lily Claire.
You're welcome. Sorry to take so much time.
That's fine. Very valuable information, Lily. And thanks for who put the questions in the chat as well. All right, so as I mentioned, it's a two-part session. So the second session, we would be really having a conversation with the two innovators that I mentioned. So it's my pleasure to introduce, firstly, Debbie-Ann Turner, the Director of Turner Innovations Limited. She's the co-inventor of a USA patented, what did I say? Oh, Alison Debbie Turner. I know Debbie very well, you know. That's, huh? It's correct? Okay. Co-inventor of USA patented the soil harvesting machine and a patent pending soil de-seeding machine. So Alison will give you her story as we go forward, but just to say that what she has allows one to strip soil using a machine instead of manually. I think when I initially met Debbie, she taught me how to de-seed soil, and they used to use like an umbrella hook, like the long part of the umbrella, and that's what they used to push through the soil. So anyway, Debbie and her husband found a way to turn that into an automatic process. So she'll talk more about that. And Jovan Evans, who is the director of Aquaflow. So Jovan is the inventor of the pump and spray, and it's a bottle-based shower system. So if you have small volumes of water that can only fit in a bottle, you don't have to pour it on yourself. You can actually take a shower, right? And I think there are variable things. You can get it spraying very hard or very soft, but I think Jovan will tell you more about it as well. And then to anchor the conversation, we have Miss Chantal English. I was going to say manager for copyright, but you heard that she is now deputy director for legal. And we have Mrs. Lushana Francis Cheddar-Singh, who is a project manager at the DBJ and a budding attorney, so this is an area for her as well. So ladies, I'm going to hand over to you and ask you to lead the conversation.
Welcome to the second part of our webinar, Intellectual Property, Demystifying the Myths. So we'll be hearing from two inventors this morning, and I am one of your moderators, Chantal English, and with me is Luciana Francis. Okay. So we have Miss Alison Turner and Mr. Jovan Evans. So we're going to hear a little bit about Alison and Jovan. So Alison, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Alison? What do you want the audience to know about you?
Well, hi.
Hi.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for having us here today. It's an honor, especially to be amongst the DBJ group and JIPRO, who have been a big part of my journey personally. So all protocols observed, and I am Alison Turner, known by most as Debbie, which is my middle name, and I am our company name is Turner Innovations Limited, and I am the co-inventor of the sorrel harvesting machine USA patented, and also the patent pending sorrel deseeder. So what our machine does is it actually facilitates the stripping of the sorrel flesh away from the sorrel seed, which currently worldwide is done by hand, using commonly a tool that's an unbroken umbrella stick, which is pushed into the base of the sorrel, and it then is twisted and turned, and the flesh is removed from the seed. So it's very tedious, it's very slow, it's time-consuming, and it's a costly process. Sorrel is actually grown in about 55 countries around the world, 35 to 55 countries, and everybody's using a similar method. So my husband and myself have invented the first machine in the world that can actually do this mechanically now.
Excellent.
So it's an amazing journey that we've been on, and we've been on this journey for 8 years.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're actually revolutionizing the whole sorrel industry. And we've been on, we haven't actually got to market with our machine yet, but we've been developing it over the 8 years, which has included having to look at intellectual property.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Alison. Let's hear from Jovan. Tell us about yourself. What do you want the audience to know about you?
Well, I'm Jovan Evans. I hold multiple IP. I have 1 patent, 2 industrial designs, and a trademark.
Congratulations.
It is with these innovations that I formed a company called Aquaflow, where we do water dispensers, we do hand wash stations, and portable showers. And this is the innovation that got me started. Most of you would know it as the pump and spray. It solves the problem of taking a shower when there's no available running water, as Chris had alluded to earlier. And this was the first one. And it has gone through quite a few changes over the years. In terms of the other IP, this is one of them. Most people would not have seen this. This is an industrial design. It's a special shower head. As you can see, it's the size of your fingertip. You put it on, let us say, a tube, and just like that, you have a shower head.
Wow. Oh.
So that's another.
Amazing.
Yeah. Also in industrial designs, I have a hand wash station that allows 2 persons to wash their hands at the same time from a bucket and stuff. You would have probably seen my mark or my trademark around the place. Currently, you'd see our work in probably about 4,000 bars, a couple of hundred schools around the country. So probably 40,000 persons per day benefit from our innovation.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. So what inspired you to create your invention? Let's go to Alison first, then I'll go back to Jovan. What inspired you to create your invention?
Well, it actually started by identifying a need in the market, so there was a gap. My husband runs a local farm store called Turner Farm Store. Just put it out there. And he had customers that were coming in. They buy retailed fertilizers because they're very expensive to buy all bags. So we retail and sell smaller amounts. So a customer came in to him one day and told him that he had to abandon a field of sorrel. So we didn't really choose sorrel as a subject to look into, but it came to us.
Sorrel chose you.
Sorrel definitely chose us. So we started by, they said they had to abandon the crop because the profit margin was going to be less than the cost to actually reap sorrel because of the labour costs that were involved. So my husband then came home and said, there must be a way to solve this. Now, being the dutiful wife, I turned around and said, no, if it was to be invented, it would have been done already, so leave it alone. And as a dutiful husband, he decided to prove me wrong. And that was the inspiration that actually then led to him desperately to find a solution to prove me wrong, not necessarily to become an inventor. And as a result of that effort, we started looking at ideas together. I got particularly fed up with it and left it alone, and then realized that he was still pursuing the idea. And long story short, after a couple of months, he came in one day and actually said, look, I've done it. Wow. And he had the seed in one hand and the flesh in the other.
Wow.
So the first thing that, the first thing that I did was run to find out if there was anything like it on the internet to make sure. And then, when I realized nothing was going up, realized that we could be actually onto something amazing here that could really change the whole industry. So that was the inspiration. It was actually a customer that came in and identified a gap, and we then started to look at ideas and developing ideas, started to understand sorrel, because you have to understand your product before you can actually find a solution.
That's an excellent story. Beautiful. Won't you agree, Lashana?
Definitely.
Very excellent. Excellent. Beautiful story.
Thank you.
And I like the teamwork, the team effort that you work with your husband to get it done. That is very important. Collaboration. And look at you today.
Yes.
Let's hear from Jovan. What inspired you to create your invention?
Well, my innovation came from a personal need.
Okay.
It was pretty basic. I was naked at the time. I was in the shower, and it seemed as if I'd forgotten to catch water in the morning before I went to work. So I was staring at this empty bucket, and I was like, oh no, this is not going to end.
Not good at all.
So I went to sleep. I'm one of those persons where if water not touch my skin, it's hard to go on my bed. But I struggled that night. I woke up in the morning though, and I went online and I went to search to see if there was a solution. Because I live in an apartment, and ultimately I wanted something small. So I was just searching for something that could use something like a bottle or something. And surprisingly, there was nothing. But that morning, I catch my water same way, and I go to work. Right? But the thought about this problem, it didn't go away. I just said, no, this was 2014 at the time. I said, yo, this is 2014. There must be a solution to this. Because the thing about it, this bail out a bucket thing, I've been small and thing, is that's what I used to, you dip and you fall back. Or, I don't know if that is.
So you wanted a change. You're tired of.
And I did some research, and over 2 weeks, I came up with the first prototype.
2 weeks, impressive.
And I can tell you more about the process.
Impressive.
I will just continue
Yes,
with Javon. Coming from your pain point, what was described for us, the process in creating your invention?
Well, like I said, I did some research. I researched wells. I researched all sorts of things related to water dispensation. And it's like I had this, it's like I said, you know what I'm going to try? I was going to stick some tube in this buckle and just pump it out. Now, I actually bought some pumps online, quite similar to this, and through some miracle, it worked the first time. It never come out so nice, But it came out, and I knew that I could make it better.
You're onto something. And what, if any, challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them?
Well, full of challenges. All right. First of all, fabrication, which is basically making things in our country, is not so popular. And even this thing you see here, this was 3D printed.
Okay.
And so at the start, I didn't have a decent shower head. It was just water just coming out of a pipe.
Hose, okay.
But the thing about it, to conserve underwater, you need a spray, right? And so the first challenge was prototyping. But I found a place about 2 minutes from where I work, where prototyping could be done, so I used their services. And when I went to them, I was the first person to use that service that the company offered. It was Pear Tree Press on Holborn Road, big up in yourself. That helped me along the way. Apart from that, there was financing. DBJ assisted with that through a grant which I had applied through in collaboration with the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship and stuff. In the aspect of commercializing the innovation, I was just a programmer at the time. I didn't know anything about business, so one of the challenges I had was like the personal development side. I had to level up to basically
And you got
do
that
business.
support through the program you mentioned, that's the Ignite program.
Well, through the Branson Center, they are BDOs for the DBJ, and that's a business development office.
Okay.
So I was at every workshop. So them time they're hungry for knowledge. So like, I mean, you have product challenges, of course, but you're gonna have some internal stuff to deal with as well. So that if you want the income to scale, you might have to scale as well in terms of your competence and knowledge.
Excellent. And I'll pose the similar question to you, Debbie. Describe for us how you actually created your invention and the challenges you faced, if any, and how you overcame them.
Well, in all fairness, I have to give all the credit to my husband because he came up with the original idea. Behind every successful man, there's a strong woman. So,
exactly.
We really wouldn't be here unless just putting it out there. Go women. It came out of the necessity, like we said, we saw a gap in the market, and my husband came home, and he's a great thinker. He's totally ahead of his time, but he's not really very vocal. So,
and his name is Oral. That's interesting.
And his name is Oral. So he actually started working on the idea. He had a lot of patience. And it took me encouraging him because I remember the very first machine that we had, the blades were made from razor blades. We wanted a round blade, and there was no such thing as a round blade.
Okay.
So we spent about, I think it was a total of about 72 hours making the first blade, and our first machine had about 7 rows of blades on them. Wow. So we would be watching TV, and he'd be there with a piece of grass, glue, and a piece of blade trying to create a round razor blade, cut every razor blade in half. So there were many times to stop. And he wanted to stop, and I'd be like, no, get on with it. Get on with it. It's your idea. Get on with it. Motivator. So, and that was challenging because especially when you're putting something together that's never been made before. So you're doing all the work, and you don't know if you're going to get the results at the end. So that was a challenge. But the support is where it pushed it through. For me, challenges were to do with being a leader. It's an easy option to follow and just follow what everybody else does. But when you're putting new ideas out, convincing people that you're doing something good is really something worthwhile. You get a lot of no's. You get a lot of this is rubbish. I remember some huge government department, I won't mention any names.
Please don't.
But actually said to her, came and took one look at our invention, said, this is a load of rubbish, it wouldn't work, it's not going to work. So it's being able to have the mindset to continue going and turn every negative to a positive, which is something I always talk about.
Excellent.
And whenever anybody told me that this wasn't going to work, in my head I was just determined to make it work, just to be able to approach them and say, I told you. And that's where I told you. So there we are. I'm looking forward to seeing some people now. So that was another challenge. Financial backing. Again, with an idea, being a leader, people like to, even institutes, major institutes in Jamaica, I find, prefer to back things that they know and understand. But when you come with a new invention, it's really hard to convince them to put their money into a project. And that was a major challenge. And that is where I decided, personally, to look outside the box, because my personal If I had to say something about myself, or I had one last statement for me, or something to put on my tombstone, I don't know, it would be that I never take no for an answer. No is an opportunity to find your yes.
That's an excellent mantra.
And I will, right, and that's me. The more you tell me no, the more I will seek out a yes, right, Chris? So, yeah, so that's really important, to never give up. So then, when I realized that the regular institutes that you would think of, like banks, etc., weren't ready for what I had to bring, I then looked at the bigger organizations. First of all, it was the industry leader in my country, which at the time would have been the Ministry of Agriculture for farming. That was the late Roger Clark, God rest his soul. He was very instrumental in our journey, especially in the very early days. Okay. And I never stopped until I got an audience with him, and that's another story, but we don't have time for that. But when I did eventually get to see him, he suggested Development Bank of Jamaica. And from I heard the word development, bank, and Jamaica, I realized that they were the partners. And if they weren't the partners, they were going to become the partners. You can't tell me that you're developing, and I have a development. You can't tell me you're a bank and you don't have access to money, and Jamaica is the country that I'm in. So they were the perfect and only partners. And again, whether they were ready for me or not, I was going to make them ready, because as far as I'm concerned, that's what they represented. So that actually wasn't, well, it was a challenge in the first part. I had an amazing experience with Milverton Reynolds, who was a legend for me, and so instrumental in the development of Development Bank of Jamaica. I made my way to his office very forcibly. But that actually turned around as a blessing for us, because we actually, when he did see, I made an appointment with him that wasn't real. And I followed through on my end of the appointment and got into his office.
Wow.
And I remember him putting his head around the door and saying, "Are you Alison Turner?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, if you're this determined to get me, you're going to be successful in business. So I'm ready to listen to what you have to say."
I love that.
So that's one of your getting your yes. Never, even when they're saying no,
Never accept.
get your yes. So that was a challenge. But once I had that foundation, once I had real businesses that were progressive on board, it started to flow. Even media attention. When we went to the media, they weren't interested. They actually advised us that if we want to get our story out to the world, because we wanted financial help.
Right.
So we went to the media, and they said to us, you have to pay us to print your story.
Sounds about right.
So if it had been international, we would have got the story straight away. But being local, it wasn't interesting, unfortunately. Things have changed since then. We're talking 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And with social media, etc. as well, it's a lot easier. But at that time, that was a challenge. And yet, once we had the likes of Development Bank of Jamaica on and angel investors on, you know, I've just got to get somebody to answer my calls for me, because they're constantly ringing me for stories.
Excellent.
So those are the type of challenges.
What you overcame them.
But we
Yes.
overcame them.
And that's the beauty of being tenacious.
Right.
No is an opportunity to find your yes.
Yeah, that's all it is. Nothing else. It's never, ever no. Never.
So Chris, set you up another question. And I heard the EXPERT program was named after you, right?
Yes. Not so much named after me. We were the inspiration. So we were the inspiration for Ignite, and here we are.
Okay, so I'm going to jump over to Jovan. So did you receive any assistance from anyone to make the dream a reality?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, there was a BBJ, but of course, there was family. They ensured that I didn't starve. Back then I was slimmer. Of course, we have Jaipo.
Oh, yes.
Because, I mean, I know Jason, I know Miss Herdsman. If you contact Jaipo, search and knowledge about IP, they will guide you on those things. There was JSIF, which is Jamaica Social Investment Fund. My products were quite useful in their projects, and they carried me along, and it allowed me to get feedback from the persons that would use my product the most, and that was very good. From a distribution, I'd like to thank all the persons that retailed pump and spray and the other products.
Right.
I'd like to mention particularly the team from Azan Super Center, Mr. Milad Azan. He was one of the first to believe in me. And so I sold a pump and spray, and this lady lived in Papi. Now I was saying that I was doing free delivery around town, and this is something you entrepreneurs, you have to ask where people live before you. Anyway, I drive up some bush. That time, you know, like when you drive and you don't need AC anymore,
Right.
Anyway, I set up the thing for this lady and happy and collect her money and go about my business. And she called me and said she want a refund or something. I was like, what? Anyway, I was like, wow, there you go for going to. Anyway, she said, meet me at Azan's, right? And I said, all right, cool. It was, because I didn't have to go there, so I was like, yo, I'll take this thing and whatever. So I go to Azan's and like, I give her money and she gave me the pump and spray, right? And I saw a guy there, like one of the guys that work at the groundsman.
Yes.
And I asked him, who are the boss? Who are the big man? And he said, yo, Jenna, show you. What you want with the boss? And I show him the product. Right? No. I'm sorry, cool. He called Mr. Azan. And Mr. Azan came on. And I said, I have this product. This is what it do. And I'd like to have it at Azan's. Now, this is like in the parking lot. So there's like a cafeteria, upstairs cafeteria near the parking lot. So the staff is watching the exchange down below, right? So I'm saying, all right, show me your thing. And I take the same product that the woman returned and I demo it.
Yes.
Right? And it sprayed the thing. So the thing about it, when most people see it for the first time, they can't imagine that the water can come out so forcefully.
Yes.
And Mr. Hassan just look and say,
Yes.
is it good? And I'm saying, yeah! So you know, like in the gladiator thing where I say mirth.
Yes. So everything happens for a reason.
All right.
Yes.
He ordered 48 that day.
Yes.
In the first 10 minutes, we sold probably like 5 or 6.
Wow.
Amazing.
Excellent.
Yes. Everything
So that's
happens for a reason.
So I have to big up.
Yes, thankfully
That's a
she
no to
said
the
no
yes.
and it yes.
That's right. Never a no.
Yes,
Just an
knowing-
opportunity.
Right.
It's amazing.
It's an amazing story.
In more recent times, I mean, like when I went on these things like with JSIF, like I said, I got some feedback from the person that I thought, that would use the product. I remember once I went to Tivoli and Portia was there. I mean, the Honorable Portia Simpson Miller was there. And she hugged me up, right? And she said, I'm so proud of you. I was like, what are you talking about? And then, but she apparently had seen me and stuff. And what had happened was I had carried another product that I had, a bottle with a fixture on it. And everybody was gravitating toward this particular item. Now, the story behind the item is basically a 5-gallon bottle with what some people might call a pipe. But it's like the thing that you use on the water cooler, where you just tap. Everybody is fascinated by this, because what was happening was that people were using it to wash their hands because they had some food around the place. But let me tell you the story about this product or innovation. What had happened was I bought something online from Amazon, a Brita dispenser, and it came cracked. But I'm one of those persons that don't throw it too much things. If it's useful, I keep it. My grandfather teach me that. Anyway, so I attached the thing on the 5-gallon bottle, right? And I'm using it, and I'm happy. And one day, the lady that helps me with the cleaning, she came and she see the bottle, and she said, yo, where you get this from? I said, I make it. And she said, all right, tell you what, don't pay me the next time I come. I want a bottle like that.
Wow.
Right? No. Why I tell you this long story? Anyway, it's to mention the next, another company that helped me. And that is Campari. Through the pandemic, Campari they bought about 4,000 solutions to go into their bars. So if you, so that put us on the
Yes,
map.
that's excellent.
So I have to big up
Yeah, that's excellent.
and
Brilliant.
stuff
Yes.
and thing. Yeah, of course there was the help from the Branson Center. They were always looking for opportunities for us to increase our revenue. They were actually the ones that helped us to get this product in Flint, Michigan. Some of you might not recall this, but they probably still have water colors in Flint. So people are donating water, but yeah, you drink and that's cool, but nobody knows it, right? And
Your
so,
solution.
right, so at the time we never had a 5-gallon product, and we made one for them, and we pushed it out to Flint, and it was a huge success, and vibes thing. And so before, right, even talking about, like Debbie was talking about finances, the banks and stuff, they weren't supporting you. I remember going to get a loan, and the person that came with the wholesale idea get through, and them go, and I come with my thing. I actually took my pension. I resigned from a good up job, got the pension, and bought product for the first set and thing. But if you believe in your thing, you just have to put your money where your mouth is.
Right. That's excellent, Jovan. I'm going to just jump over to Alyssa now. To the same question: did you receive any assistance from anyone to make this dream a reality?
Yes, and there are far too many to mention all, so if I miss you, please understand. But it kind of in chronological order, it kind of started with family, because when we went to the banks and they weren't willing to accept us as a feasible idea, we told our family and they backed us out of love. And just to get off their case, really, just, okay, here you go. So we used the platform crowdfunding, which allowed us to tell our story and after protecting our intellectual property rights by doing the email system that we used, which I now learned probably, yeah, but it's one that we tried. And we also had applied for a patent online, provisional patent online that later became non-provisional for overseas patenting. And so we started there, and then we went on to, like I mentioned earlier, we went to the Minister of Agriculture, who then put us in touch with Development Bank of Jamaica. Now, Chris said he would tell the story, but just a really brief overline of the story. What really happened is that when we came to the Development Bank of Jamaica, there was nothing in place for grant funding. There was grant funding, but as I understand it, it was partial grant funding for businesses. So we said, it doesn't, and I have to actually give Chris his kudos here, because
he deserves it.
Chris came in, was drawn into the meeting last minute. As a junior, I think, at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Big man, no, what's it?
He hasn't changed much, a little bit broader, And he came in and was really kind of observant and kind of being able to put his input if there was anything to put. But when I did a mini pitch to Milverton and a couple of heads of departments, and they were like, well, we can do possible funding, partial, and we can also do lower rates and get you some help. But there's nothing direct that we can do. And I was grateful for that, because that was a start where we didn't have before. So it was a 1 foot forward. So when we were walking actually from the conference room to the lift, it was Chris that said to me, how are you going to pay back this loan? Do you remember that, Chris? And I said, yeah, how you plan to pay back the loan? Okay, you've got a nice low rate thanks to DBJ, and we'll give you partial grant funding, but how are you going to pay back their principal? I said, I don't know, I don't care. I'm 1 foot in and I'll figure that out. Yeah, I said, I'll figure the rest out when I get there. That's my no to yes. I would have figured it out. And between the conference room and the lift in this building, on the other side, Chris said, let's apply to the board and see if we can get full grant funding.
Excellent.
And
And the rest
We
is
worked
Madrid.
together. We worked together and we actually put
a
a
proposal.
proposal together, and it was presented to the board, and it was failed.
What?
It was failed. So I, again, not taking
No is an
my
opportunity
no.
for you.
We decided, I decided to appeal that.
I was wondering, oh, it's a good thing.
And I really just want to tell, it's a very important story.
Yeah.
So we appealed it, we went back, and it passed, and we got full grant funding. So our first
Excellent.
help was from Development Bank of Jamaica, and it covered the cost to pay for our patent, our USA patent, to build a work area for my husband. And as a result of that, they literally walked with us to the bathroom. They called us every 5 minutes. They monitored us.
No.
It was awful. But
Well, it was
we
necessary
succeeded.
It was great.
for the
But
growth.
I didn't realize at the time it was them studying how this actually worked for us to be able to put something together to help other people. And there was a presentation further to that, and that's when we realized. And through that, I believe that was a big part of how Ignite was born. So we are incredibly proud. And I tell that story because I am so proud that that we're part of the journey that led the way. Because one of the early things that Chris said earlier was that, we're a nation of people in Jamaica that don't really like working very hard. So we create great ways
To make work.
to make work less,
Yes.
but we don't monopolize on that. And Development Bank of Jamaica, for me, was the first organization to recognize that as an institute and put something in place and start to learn along with people like myself. So they were instrumental. So that was one person that helped us along the way. Just to mention a few others, Branson Center of Entrepreneurship. We have a social responsibility to not only take our invention to market, but also to do things the right way. We need to have corporate governance in our journey because people are watching us and we want to lead by example. So Branson Center of Entrepreneurs made us into a business. It's not good enough just having the idea.
The
You have to have the
capacity
business structure
building.
to be able to get financing, to look at investment opportunities later. You have to be into corporate governance. So Branson Center of Entrepreneurship did that for us. They showed us. They were the start. And that was the first of many business courses. I've been on this journey for 8 years. I finished my last business course about 3 weeks ago. Wow. I'm so glad it's over. That was with RevUp Jamaica, who DBJ are also a part of.
Yes,
so DBJ also partnered with all the people that were out there helping and brought them into a pool so you can access everything. So huge contribution there. And also First Angels Jamaica. Huge. They have been and are a part of my journey up to this day. We just got grant funding to manufacture our first set of machines,
Wow.
which we are doing now.
That's excellent.
Yeah, but we went through a pandemic. And unfortunately, at that time, when the pandemic hit, our investors, who, I don't know if you know much about angel investment, but it's really done from a point of love and belief in the entrepreneur and their dream, rather than as an investment return, on most levels. So they'll support, you'll get the support right through, whatever that support is. But then if something like a pandemic hit, which it did, it's not a priority. It's save your own business so that you can look at, everybody had to do that. So we had to be quite rightfully put on a back burner, but we had to make the decision, do we stop? Because we'd have a great reason to give up at that point.
And how did you use that as your no to yes
Ah,
opportunity?
there you go. So, well, actually, I was like, well, I'm not giving up. If they've given up on me, good luck to them. But now I'm going to prove that they should not have given up. So I decided to take that time. While everybody was putting on weight, I joined the gym.
Okay.
I was the only person in Jamaica to lose weight during that period. And, yeah, you can't see it, but it happened. Okay, it did happen.
Perseverance.
Yeah. But I also, more importantly, sought where I could get help. And believe it or not, I actually came right back to Development Bank of Jamaica. They had a program that offered grant funding. And I didn't care what the program was. I wanted the grant part of it. So I joined. And the program was actually about getting to market, using the mentorship program, linking you with industry people that related to your business. EP.
Yes.
Yeah, did you miss that one? So,
Next time.
Jovan is learning.
No, mentorship is important.
Okay, yes,
Incredibly.
it is.
You
So
can
for-
save years.
Yeah.
afterwards.
Work, right.
Well, at that point, we had actually identified a partnership overseas that would have been perfect to develop our product.
Okay.
But they were charging us X amount. When the mentorship program came on, I was linked with somebody who wasn't in the industry but could help us with the prototype, who had some experience. And they actually started the journey through the DBJ program of readjusting our business plan to fit the current market in terms of COVID, the impacts, and also to develop a version of what we really wanted from overseas, because like Jovan said, you're limited to resources here in Jamaica. So we said, okay, well, we can't do it that way, but let's do what we can with what we've got. DBJ facilitated that financially and through the program, put us on a platform to be able to put that all together, monitored us again, and introduced us to a company. It was actually, forgive me for not giving you the name of the company right now, but they started the process of giving us a blueprint of our machine, our design.
Okay.
And with that, I did a mini version of what I had asked my investors to do while they weren't investing. I then partnered with a well-known company in Jamaica who uses our product, the biggest company in Jamaica that uses our product, and decided to prove my concept by giving them a service with my product.
So you got a service contract along with placing your product in their operation?
We actually run the product from our base and processed for them.
The treat thing?
No, that's juice.
Oh, excellent.
And
you,
Okay.
So the biggest company in Jamaica that does juice. So basically what happened is we needed to get our investors back on board to continue the journey. And we could have said, you know what, you've put your money in, you've dropped us and we haven't got to where we need to go, so we're going to back down now. We've got a reason to step out and look fairly reasonable. And we didn't do that because we knew we had to do this. We owed it to the people that we had promised that we'd do it to, and for those that had helped us already. We couldn't give up. Right. It was never an option. Right. And not for ourselves. I mean, we want to be wealthy, obviously. Right. Who doesn't? Right. But we owed more to the public, to those that we had promised we were going to change their lives.
Right. Excellent.
So that was the driving force for us. And that Audi that I've had my eye on for a long time. And then what we did was we partnered with an established organization. We processed for them, and we said that we would do revenues of X amount in a certain period of time.
And how was that for you?
Well, we said we would do, I think it was, I don't know, but I think we said we'd do like 2 million in 3 months, and we did 3 million in 2 months.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
And then with that result, with using our equipment, we went back to our investors and said, listen.
You've proven yourself.
I've proven myself. Get back on board. And they couldn't. I mean, we actually taunted them with it in the beginning and said, if we can do this, can you? And they're like, yeah, because you ain't going to do it, you know. And then, so it was great being able to go back to them and say, listen, we've done it. And straight away they came back on board, and now we're going to market. And that was through help of DBJ. So First Angels Jamaica. Luckily for us, when the pandemic started to slow down a little bit and we started to recover slightly, First Angels, alongside Development Bank of Jamaica and a few other organizations, came together and come up with a program called RevUp, which actually takes small businesses and gives them the tools by directly putting them in touch with the people who are in the industry. So rather than go to a learning platform, your learning platform are the people that do the work. Right. That's the key difference. Right. So we're speaking to lawyers that are teaching us about IP. We're talking to the actual people that do the work, and that gives you a real-time value. So RevUp has been amazing because that came just about as we were ready to go to market. We had our investment. It also gave opportunity to investment. And again, DBJ and these organizations, First Angels Jamaica, have teamed together to be stronger, to create one platform to bring businesses out in Jamaica. So those are a few of the people. We've also had, when we were developing, this is an 8-year journey. So when we were developing the machine and it came to a standstill, because we actually reinvented our machine. So the patent that we have, the USA patent, is for our first machine, which is the sorrel harvesting machine. And when we came to manufacturing, the cost wasn't going to save anything. So we had to scrap at that point and start afresh. How many inventors do you know actually invent?
2.
Wow.
2, yeah. Completely different system. Completely different machine,
Impressive.
but better results. So we went back to the drawing board and, just crazy story on that, but we don't have time for that. So we went back to the drawing board and we made another machine and we had to start all over again.
And how far along are you with that?
We've just sold our first 10, 13 machines
That is
Excellent.
impressive.
Excellent.
in several different countries. So I'm going to have to come and see Jaipur to make sure I
Yes,
get
certainly.
that for those countries. I was planning a nice trip that I was going to take out of the company to go and visit all these countries that we're selling in, but no, I don't have to. Thank you, Jaipur. That's not a good thank you. And we can now actually get covered in those countries, save some money.
Filing here.
Filing here.
Right.
So it's an amazing experience to have foreigners call you and tell you, can we buy your machine? You know, I've got this great Italian guy, he's got such a wonderful voice, and he speaks to me and says, I'd like to buy your machine. And I'm like, wow, you know, to know that we're providing something that is wanted
Globally.
all over the world is crazy. We have over 200 pipeline customers waiting. We're just taking our time because it's new and getting our product out. So yeah, very exciting.
Excellent, excellent. Beautiful discussion, beautiful conversation. I'm inspired.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sure there are other persons who are listening and they're also inspired. We're
Yes.
coming against us, but what advice would you give to anyone who desires to create a product? So I'm going to ask Jovan first, but in a sentence, because we're strapped for time at this point. So in a sentence, what advice would you give? One sentence to anyone who wants to create. Have a desire to create? One sentence.
I would say just do it.
Just do it.
And within the context of this discussion, it's very important that you get intellectual, your stuff protected.
Yes.
This is what the patent
Ooh,
looks like. So, your name, it's done by the Governor General and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Jaipur does not provide the frame, but they will soon.
We will we'll provide the support.
I like that.
Yes.
So
Right.
just do it, get started. Because remember, you know, in life, if you don't do it, you will have this regret.
Right.
So just
do it.
Just do it.
So just do it. Excellent. Let's hear from you,
Um,
Alison.
So I've been asked this question before, and I like to really kind of I thought hard about the answer. I think one of the key things is make sure you study your industry and your product. Know everything about it if you're going to invent something. Because unless you know everything about it, you're going to give yourself problems along the way. You might put a lot of work into something and get to the point where you might find it's I've had already been done. So study your product is very, very important, or your service or your industry. Think about how you can make it better. And most importantly, protect your idea.
Excellent. Excellent. Most importantly, protect your idea. And following up from protecting your idea, we want to know, when did you learn about Jaipur and a little bit about how we assisted in the process? In a sentence again, because we're winding down.
All right. So my journey with Jaipur for the patent, it started in August of 2014 and it ended the next year on the 21st of December. So that's about 16 months probably. And what they do is they send the stuff to Bureau standards and they give you a letter that tells that, yeah man, it's not foolishness, this thing actually work. And then you have to describe your stuff and put it in the Gazette. Lifter spoke about that. Yes, this is a real thing. I don't know who buys this product, this paper, but it's there. And they wrote me one day and they said, come and collect it. And oddly enough, it was a good time.
Yeah. You felt proud.
We can feel
Felt
the
proud.
joy.
Can just imagine. Now we can see it on
The
your face.
reality of it is, not many people have a patent. You know, so you'll be among an exclusive
Ah, look at that.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Yes.
It's true.
Yes.
Very
yes.
true.
Yeah, I've been on a plane and say, what you do? And I'm on an invent. Oh, God. But anyway,
Different.
over to you,
Yeah.
Debbie. What's your take?
Debbie,
So for me, it was initially because I had sought for overseas product a lot. Sorry, like our friend had said earlier. Yes. And, you know, it's more of an international sale. It was for me initially in my head, but there are partners in Jamaica that will benefit as well. So Google was my best friend. The USA Patent Office was very important. Online services that give you full information, give you base documents that you can copy from. At the time, Scientific Research Council was very potent for me as well, because I needed to find out if there was anything like it in the world, and they could conduct a deeper research. And they introduced me to JIPRO, which I then went and met. And now, the great thing about JIPRO is they're a support system. So it's not just about telling you what to do. They encourage you, because Jamaica, you don't know where to start.
Yeah.
You don't know where to start. When you're introduced to JIPRO, they then give you all the avenues you need to think about. They support you. They give you the forms. They have the follow-through, and it's somebody to talk to. So it's like a big sister, big brother.
And holding through.
Organization.
Supporting. Oshana, over to you. Quickly, we're winding down.
And I've heard that you have your interactions with DBJ. Javon, just share with the audience, how did you hear about DBJ, really?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but the
And the
Ignite
support you got.
The Ignite opportunity, which is a grant, which Debbie had paved the way for, they had introduced it to me while I was in the program, and I was so excited that there was an institution in Jamaica that was invested in innovation, local innovation, and I'm grateful to them to this day. And I encourage any person out there who is considering applying for any of these opportunities to brave up and submit that application, and you never know where this will take you.
You become an inventor. So quickly just share with the audience how they can reach out to you to purchase your...
Well, in answer to that last question real quickly, and I will finish up in that as well. I have to take a big shout out to Roger Clark, like I said earlier on, but you know, that institution is an amazing institution for my industry, so find somebody that can support you. And I had said it earlier, never take no for your answer. But most importantly also your environment. Entrepreneurship and business is a very lonely road.
Lonely.
And it's very, very important to keep your environment warm. So if you want to be a lawyer, hang out where the lawyers hang out. If you want to be a business person, hang out where the business people work out. And make sure that you have people that are saying to you, keep going. Because if you could be with, you know, if you want to be a doctor, you don't go to a rum bar, because you're going to end up being a rumhead. Yeah. You know, because that's what they're doing. So you follow them. So you keep your environment sacred.
Yes.
Very important. And that is the advice I would give to anybody who's trying to invent something. Keep your environment sacred, never take no for an answer, and just keep going. Use the resources that are there. You've got DBJ. You don't need anything else. They will link you to everybody you need to know. Yeah. And you will succeed.
Thank you. There we have it, everyone. Thank you so much. We heard from Alison and we heard from Jovan. Very inspiring stories. So thank you so much. And as we said, this is just the first part in the series. So we will let you know when again. So thank you so much, everyone.
If you want to find Aquaflow online, just search for Aquaflow JM on your social media, Aquaflow JM, or visit our website, aquaflowjm.com. All right.
And you just got to put in Sora DeCida or Alison Turner or Oral Turner, and you'll get us on Google.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. Over to you, Chris.
All right, so thank you very much. All right, so that was a very insightful, engaging conversation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Debbie stole my story, what I was going to tell you now. Really about the Ignite program, right? So as she mentioned, seeing an innovator as herself, really having an invention and wanting to try and create value out of it, we realize that DBJ as a development organization should be trying to help startups. Just consider, when I asked her how she going to pay back the money, it was because she could try this thing and it don't work and she don't make back any money, so therefore she can't pay it back and then probably come for her house, right? And we didn't want any of that to happen. So what DBJ has done is created a program, it's a grant product, to really help you to try something new. And I'm going to really classify it as we're supporting innovative startups. So young businesses that don't have access to the capital or the money, and they have a brand new idea, invention, that they can get financing and the necessary support to try and get that done. So Jovan talked about his invention. We want to support people who are doing this instead of those who are buying things like this to come and sell here, right? So invent, be innovative, try and create something. And as I mentioned, Jamaicans are very creative, so I know you guys can do it. So as we said at the beginning, this Biggie project, the DBJ, is really about encouraging innovation and entrepreneurship. There are a number of opportunities for you now. The RevUp Caribbean, as Debbie mentioned, they're accepting applications now. So any inventor, innovator, entrepreneur who is here, I would suggest you go and register for that. They spoke about, both of them are Branson Center graduates, as you call it. The Branson Center also has a program open now that you can apply to, and they provide you with the necessary type of business training, mentorship, guidance, exposure to different grants that can be available for you to be able to get access. So I'll encourage you both to check out both of those. And just to mention here, DBJ is currently designing a specific product to help with inventors like yourself to file patents for innovation. So typically before in the Ignite grant, you'd get the grant. Part of it, as Debbie mentioned, she used for patent filing. The other part was, you know, to buy products, get service, etc. We're kind of splitting it and we're separating the grant for you to do your business, and we're going to have a separate one that is helping you to file necessary patents. So I can't give you a date yet, but we're actively working on it, but definitely before the end of the year, that will be available for people to apply to and get the necessary support to protect your intellectual property, not only in Jamaica, but in different jurisdictions based on, as Lily Claire mentioned, where you plan to do business. So that brings us to the end. I hope you guys had an engaging, informative session. Please leave a note in the chat. We're working on the second part of the series. We have many different ideas. Feel free to put some out there. And I'd like to thank the JIPA team, as always, for this collaboration, and my Biggie team, and the team here that's putting on this event. A big thanks, and we'll see you in part 2 of the series.